what does "there is only one" really mean? So welcome to week 3 of Share the Love, Share the Light, and Share the Truth. I'm really delighted that all of you are here today. Usually I do a brief overview of what religious science is all about, but because my entire talk is based on our fundamental spiritual truth, I'm not going to go into the overview right now. We're going to start by just jumping right in. And I want to start by reading a really powerful passage. Then I'm going to read another powerful passage that says the same thing in a different way. And then I'm going to tell you a story that says the same thing in a completely different way. 3 different things, all saying the same fundamental, critically important, life-transforming spiritual truth. In fact, they are all teaching us the single most important spiritual truth that there is for us to get. Because when we get this principle, when we really get it, when we really embody it, and when we really live from it, it is the ultimate leap off the fence into the side of yes. It is the definitive line in the sand that allows us to walk through our lives fearlessly. So today is really a continuation of the past 2 weeks. The first reading is from religious science founder Ernest Holmes. And what I'm about to read, Holmes really, really means. And you know that he really means it because he puts the key word in full capitalizations. I don't know if you've noticed that when you read the Science of Mind textbook, but there's a lot that is, have you ever gotten a text message where it's all in caps and you feel like you're being screamed at, right? Well, he does a lot of screaming in the book because he wants to put that emphasis on the word that I'm going to talk about. And if you missed what he said and what I read, well, you just have to turn a few pages in the textbook, and you're going to read it again and again and again, because he does tend to go over this a lot, because he really wants to convey his message. So this is what he wrote. There is one mind by which we think, one spirit by which we live, one body of which we are a part, and one light that lights everyone's pathway. One spirit, one mind, and one substance. One God in whom we all live, and one law, which we all use. One, all caps for emphasis. One, repeated in all caps again for emphasis. One, repeated again in all caps, exclamation point, for even more emphasis. The infinite must be one, you guessed, in all caps, for there could not be 2 infinite beings. Whatever change takes place must take place within the one. And he makes the point over and over again, like only Ernest Holmes can make, lest we forget that there is nothing other than the one, and it is the one that we have to put in our complete faith. And when I say complete faith in the one, I'm not talking about 70% of our faith, or even 80%, or 90%. We have to put 100% of our faith in it. Because until we have 100% faith in it, we are sitting on a fence, aren't we? We're sitting on the fence. We need to be either in or out and stop messing with Mr. In Between. Anybody remember that song? I love that song. So do we believe it or not? Do we believe it or not? Because when we do 100%, then life takes on a whole new meaning. Now, I know it's really easy to sit out here and say, yes, I believe that. But let's explore a bit deeper by now going back a couple thousand years to the Tao Te Ching, because it says the same thing as Holmes and then explains it to what it means to us. The Tao Te Ching is the entire Taoist philosophy of life in 81 verses. 81 verses. Wow. It took Holmes over 600 pages to say what he wanted to say in the Science of Mind textbook. Of course, he did repeat himself quite often, but I think that was so that we would get it. When you read something over and over again, you do get it. But the Tao Te Ching says it in 81 verses, and some of the verses are only 1 sentence long. So here's what it says on verse 32. This world is nothing but the glory of the Tao expressed through different names and forms. One who sees the things of this world as being real and self-existent has lost sight of the truth. To him, every word becomes a trap and everything becomes a prison. But one who knows the truth that underlines all things lives in this world without danger. To him, every word reflects the universe and every moment brings enlightenment. The individual who knows the truth that underlies all things lives in this world without danger. And what is the truth that underlies all things? There is one. Capital one, exclamation point. There is only the glory of the Tao, nothing but the glory of God expressed through different names and different forms. One spirit, one mind, one substance, one life, one God. And it makes all the difference in the world to understand and to have 100% faith in this truth that underlies everything. Because if we understand that there is only one power, not conceptually, but understand that there is only one power in operation, we can do something really radical. We can walk through life, and no matter what befalls us, we understand who the giver is. And if we understand who the giver is, we can stay open when it comes. And that is what really is vastly different from how we are taught growing up and the reality of most people. They would tell us otherwise. They would tell us that we live in a dark and dangerous world, and around us, around every corner, harm can befall us. We get that on the news, right? We hear that in the stories. And we do hear a million stories like this. And here's one of them. This story was told by August Gold at a New Thought conference in 2013. It's the story of a woman who lived in downtown New York City on the Lower East Side. One night, just an ordinary night, she walked into the vestibule of her apartment to get her mail. She put her key in the lock and flipped open the box. All of a sudden, a big burly stranger crashed through the doors, grabbed her, and hurled her on the ground into a corner. We read stories like this every time we pick up the paper. That's why I try not to pick up the paper, don't we? We do hear stories like this. Something bad, something totally unexpected and unwanted comes crashing through a door. Nobody wants something like this to happen to them, and we certainly do not wish it upon anyone else. And there she was on the ground, crouching in fear. And who would not be? I know I would be. There isn't anyone in this room, myself included, who would not be instantly gripped with terror. Am I right? That would be really scary. And we sit in rooms like this and we say we believe that there is only one. But how would we respond in these moments? And it is in this moment that we get to decide what one really means, because we never know when a moment like that will happen. Now, it may not happen exactly like this. We may not get shoved into a corner by a big, burly, scary stranger. But life can come at us suddenly and without warning, can't it? We can definitely get shoved. As August Gold was telling this story, she said, and when it comes at us like this, we have to know who's come calling, whose hand is pushing us, whose hand is knocking on the door. If we don't know, we will never ever have a peace of mind that will allow us to open the door with any kind of certainty, knowing that what is knocking on our door has our name on it, knows our name by heart, and is calling specifically for us. Whose hands pushed her down? That's a really radical question, isn't it? A lot of people would take offense to a question like that, because a lot of people want to think that everything is outside of them happening to them. But if there is only one power and one presence, if God is and I am, if everything is nothing, as the Tao says, but the glory of the Tao, if everything we see, if everything that exists is this one power and presence that we already are, then the very hand that seems to be pushing us down is our very own hand. It is our hand that is doing the pushing. Now, who wants to think that somebody would bring such a thing upon themselves? But here's what this is where our teachings can transform us. We look with our human eyes and we see her on the ground, or we see ourselves being let go from a job, or maybe in a doctor's office getting a notice about an illness or something, or dealing with something we cannot believe that we have to deal with. What do you mean I have to deal with this now? I'm busy. I have things to do. You know, we get this in our face, right? And with our limited perspective, if we do not understand what one really means, then we look with our human eyes and we say, oh my God, look what just happened to me. Isn't this awful? And of course, at this point, we get everybody around us to agree with us. Yes, it's awful. It's awful. We have a whole chorus, a whole bunch of people telling us how awful it is. But if there is really only one power and there is only one presence, and you are it, and it is you, if everything is nothing but the glory of the Tao, called by different names, if all of life is a movement toward our own enlightenment, and what is our enlightenment other than the realization of wholeness, our perfection, our completeness, our greatness, then every single thing in our lives without exception is a movement toward our wholeness, our greatness, our growth. If we don't know that, if we don't know that all of life moves us toward our growth, we will think that life is happening to us and not really understand the truth that underlies everything. And that is that life is happening for us. Life happens for us. It is happening for our own development. We are being grown and cultivated and nourished and sustained. And every single thing, without exception, not the exception of being pushed down by this man in the foyer, nothing is left out of the idea that all life is a movement to our own wholeness. Everything that comes to us, everything that happens to us, everything, bar none, isn't happening to us, it is happening for us. So she is crouching in the vestibule in every person's worst nightmare, and something hits her. This is why we study, this is why we read, this is why we go to classes. This is why we do it. For this moment when we are crouching on the ground in the middle of an experience that we don't yet understand, but we know it is for us. And she says to herself, you know, I've spent my whole life crouching. Everything that's ever happened to me, I've taken this pose. In every relationship I've had, in every job I've had with family, with friends, I am always defending myself and crouching in fear. Today is the last time I crouch. That's it. She stands up literally, and she stands up in her truth. She stood up based on the truth that there is one power. There's one presence. There's just one. And here's where the all caps come in handy. There is just one. And in these moments, you have to know it. You can't know it 80%. You can't know it 90%. Because if you only know it 80% or 90%, you will not stand up. The only way we can stand up to this fear is to know what it means 100%. And the only way we can do this is to pick a side. You've got to get off the fence and you've got to pick a side. And she did. Having picked one, she stood up for the first time ever in her life in a situation that was probably the craziest situation for her to stand up in. Because what most people would tell you, stay down, throw your purse, kick your purse over to him, and hope that he runs away. But she stood up, and she was so certain of what this meant for her that she turned right into this Goliath-sized fear, and she did something preposterously counterintuitive. She went charging toward him. And she couldn't believe what was happening. She could believe what was happening. She charged right to him, and he could not believe what was happening. Because nobody would, stand up against him, right? So he turned around, and he took off out of the building, and she went running after him down the street. She was absolutely crazy because she was living in a world without danger. The instant she understood that her own fingerprints and the fingerprints of spirit itself were on the situation, and something wasn't happening to her. Something was happening for her. When Charles Fillmore says this path is about following God all the way home, and when we think about that, oh, what a pretty concept. That's so sweet. That's so pretty. Let's follow God all the way home, right? This is what it means. Following God all the way home means standing up in the middle of a real-life metaphor. She takes this experience, and it becomes a stepping stone for her. This makes her more courageous than she has ever been. This makes her a woman she has never known herself to be. she takes this and she parlays it into a new life. What does enlightenment mean? It means every single thing that happens to us we understand as one power and presence in answer to our prayer. To grow us into the people we were born to be, we long to be, we pray to be, we desire to be, we hope to be, we dare to be, and maybe even we're afraid to be. You've got to love this path. It is very bold, and it is a transforming path. When you enter into these teachings and understand that the greatest teachers of our life and the lives before us have come to tell us that all of life is a movement toward our own wholeness, our own greatness, our own perfection. And that is what one, all caps, really means. And so it is.